and talking there with the doctor and with her mother. Now, a judge at the trial level did grant a defense motion to suppress those interviews because of the custody nature of the law enforcement officer being there. But the prosecution has appealed that to a higher court. The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists and the National Police Accountability Project, they also sent in their own amicus briefs to the court. So those briefs were wondering, could it tip the scales and result in a decision, and more importantly, a trial date in this case? Let's bring back in to discuss criminal defense attorney and civil attorney as well. John Phillips is with us. John, so in a situation where you have an appeal, in the middle of a case going to trial, we often think about appeals being at the end of a case, but here they haven't gotten there. But because of this ruling by the judge in the pretrial stage, the prosecution wants those admissions in. Your thoughts on them trying to get those in at the pretrial litigation stage?
This is both a horrible and a fascinating case. You know, you've got a girl who was in a bathroom for 20 minutes. The hospital workers talk about how bloody the scene was after. And, you know, the question from the state side is, you know, there was air in this baby's lungs when she was born versus, you know, Alexee's lawyer suing the hospital and claiming she should have never been on the medication she was on and they failed to treat her. So, you know, and then you've got police coming into a room where you've got somebody treating for severe back pain, but also now, you know, a childbirth of a stillborn baby or a baby that was killed. And all of that wraps up into the Bill of Rights and, you know, the right to both incriminate yourself, be Mirandized, but also literally have a doctor standing next to you who, and you're a 19-year-old girl and you're making confessions in front of your mom. And so, you know, it's a fascinating case when you get into, you know, doctor-patient privilege and waiver and what police can do inside a active, you know, emergency room. And so when you have all these issues, you have cases like this where the OBGYN, you know, think tanks are weighing in, and the ACLU certainly are weighing in related to this girl's rights.
Oh, yeah, you're so right that there's so many layers to this case because of all of the people involved. You've got HIPAA violations and constitutional rights that are at stake. Let's go back to that moment that you mentioned where she's in the hospital room with her mother. There's police body cams rolling and a doctor also present.
How big is the baby?
It's full term.
What? 9 months? Nothing was crying. Lexi, have you watched the news of the girls that what they do to their babies and what they go to jail? Nothing was crying.
So my question, John, is do you think they need these interactions as far as the prosecution? They have the medical evidence. They have the testimony of all of these doctors who afterward they were interviewed about what they saw at one point, when they didn't see her, when she was in the bathroom, when she didn't respond, when they were knocking on the door trying to figure out what was going on in that bathroom, the blood all over the place inside. Do they really need to have these interactions where a police officer and a doctor are present?
You know, and I know every good prosecutor, every good police officer is going to fight for the best evidence they can get in their case. And when you have essentially a confession and you know, some really hardcore admissions on tape, you want to introduce that to the jury. But on the same token, you know, you don't want to do without it, because this young lady is going to get a lot of sympathy for being 19. You know, the defense is going to say her brain wasn't fully developed and you know, that she just didn't know and didn't have, again, health care in America, didn't have, you know, she was one of the 2,400, I think, women that have babies after a full-term pregnancy. I think the state wants and needs this video to come in. But again, the problem, you know, is the invasion of rights and privileges that come with it.
The invasion of privacy, for sure. Let's go back to these interviews, though, that all of the medical professionals did with police, which may raise some HIPAA issues as well, but we know what has been suppressed is her interaction with her doctor. But let's take a listen.
She put the baby in the trash can, and then she put another clean liner over the top of it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So when they looked in there, there was no trash in there, but it was underneath the clean bag. The baby's dead. Okay, we have him in trauma too, but she killed the kid.
Yeah. How old was the baby?
I don't know. It's full term.
It's just so hard to hear the details, John. You mentioned that the ACLU has weighed in, the OBGYN think tanks, as you call them. They filed these amicus briefs, which literally means in Latin, the friend of the court. They're just submitting these briefs so that the court can take into consideration these stats and the issues and the problems that they say there are with the state being able to use that evidence. Just how compelling do you think these amicus briefs are going to be to a high court there in New Mexico?
You know, it's a question that I think all lawyers that handle appeals want to know. You know, I know appellate judges read them and their law clerks read them. And in this one, you know, it's not surprising, and I don't mean this disparaging on the ACLU. Actually, it's a compliment to the ACLU. I don't always agree with them, but they always weigh in on human rights. And you know, again, you have a 19-year-old who made a horrible mistake, and you know, you can, but I think the state can prove it without some of this. And then, you know, the main issues here that we're addressing, like the interview with the doctor, this is a treating physician who owed her privacy. But on the same token, he's almost being interrogated as an expert witness who gave the opinion that she caused her child's death. And there's lines that should be suppressed in that statement and probably lines that shouldn't be. You know, it's going to be fascinating to watch.
Oh, you're so right that can be very compelling to a jury. Even if that doctor isn't an expert witness on the stand, just by nature of being a doctor, they are going to have a lot of credibility, and they've already made that statement that this wasn't necessarily a stillbirth. I think that's going to have a lot of weight.
Well, let me add this too, that who's his patient? So certainly Alexee was his patient, but at some point, baby John Doe or Jane Doe, he does have an obligation to, right? If that baby came into his hospital, and frankly, they're being sued for the death of that baby, you know, you've got the stacking of issues and obligations and you know, medical ethics that you've got to deal with, and you know, they can't, the defense can't have it both ways, that the hospital caused the death, but and you're going to sue the hospital, but also the hospital better not defend themselves and say anything.
Yeah, let's take a listen to what some of the nurses had to say when they were interviewed.
He was blue, he was tucked in there, she had him wrapped in one, and twisted and then folded under him, and then two more on top of him, and then another trash can, a clean one, in the trash. So when I broke it open, he was tucked, and there was nothing.
Sorry you had to go through that. I'm serious.
Yeah, everybody, it's just crazy.
Yeah, I know. And that's not the placenta had?
No,
okay. That's
we shipped her, yeah, that's
okay.
where she went to Loveless.
Oh, Loveless.
Roswell.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. I misheard Lubbock, I'm sorry.
Yeah, she still hadn't delivered the placenta.
John, what do you think happens next in this case? Will we see a trial, or do you think once all the dust settles, there will be some kind of a plea?
I mean, a 19-year-old girl, right now, based upon the posturing of the state, I do think we see a trial. You know, but again, you get into criminal justice in America and public defenders and how it depends on what the appellate court says on this evidence. You know, I hope they take their time and try to get this right, because it sets a precedent for all of our people that are visiting emergency rooms. But on the same token, we've got to take care of our babies and minor children too.
Absolutely. It's a case with a lot of implications. John Phillips, thanks so much for all of your analysis this hour.